Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Here in today's video, I want to talk about fully diminished arpeggios. So fully diminished arpeggios, they sound like they're intimidating, they sound complicated, but in reality, they're actually very, very simple to use. They're actually way easier to use than basic major and minor arpeggios. They're also much, much easier to memorize the patterns that are formed by these fully diminished arpeggios. The patterns are much easier than the 5 pentatonic positions. They're much easier than the diatonic scale patterns. So if you already know all that stuff, the pentatonic positions, diatonic scale patterns, all that stuff, these are not that hard, really. They're not that hard. So first I'm just going to give you a demo real quick just to kind of show you what they sound like, and then I'm going to talk about exactly what's going on here and how to implement these into your own playing. So all of the chords that I was using in the rhythm section were all 100% part of this key, except for that E major chord. That was the one out of key chord. So when you have an out of key chord, that's when you switch stuff up. That's when you use a different scale, maybe arpeggiate that chord, maybe focus on just the notes that is causing that chord to be outside of the key. That's the thing. Whenever there's an outside chord, that's where you make a switch. If everything's 100% in the key, you only need to focus on one single scale. Target the chord tones of the underlying chords, of course, but if everything's 100% in key, you only need one scale. Because this E major chord is an outside chord, that's why we're implementing, in this lesson, we're implementing diminished arpeggios. So if you're calling this the key signature of C major, then that would be a major 3 chord. If you're calling this the key of A minor, then that would be called the major 5 chord. It really makes no difference what you want to call it. Using your circle of fifths, it's just within the grouping of 6, inner circle, clockwise position. You make that chord into a major chord. That's where you use a fully diminished arpeggio. So by making that chord major, you're introducing one out of key note. So the in-key notes for this key signature are C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Or if you are calling this the key of A minor, the in-key notes are the same 7 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All right, so there's that one out of key note, that note G sharp. So there's a couple things that you can do here. So every time this E major chord comes along, you can say, all right, there's a G sharp note. I can just kind of focus on that note G sharp. It's going to connect with the E major chord, no problem. You could also arpeggiate the E major chord. So every time an E major chord comes along, you could just say, okay, E major chord, I'm going to focus on the notes E, G sharp, and B. You could also switch to the harmonic minor scale every time this E major chord comes along, because the difference between the natural minor scale, which is A, B, C, D, E, F, G for this key, and the harmonic minor scale is A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp. So it's a raised 7th degree. That's the only difference between the harmonic minor scale and the natural minor scale. So every time this E major chord comes along, you could just think, okay, harmonic minor scale over that one single chord. Or you could take the fully diminished arpeggio approach, which is what we're doing here for this lesson. So the fully diminished arpeggio approach, 3 of the notes are in the key, and then you have that G sharp as well, which is the note that we're targeting over the E major chord. So the fully diminished arpeggio notes are going to be G sharp, B, D, and F. So 3 of the notes are part of the key signature, but then you have that G sharp in there. That's the note that we want to connect with the E major chord, so that's an option as well. So when you use a fully diminished arpeggio, it gives you a somewhat of an outside sound. So if you consider the key scale, the diatonic scale, the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, you consider those the inside notes. Even though this fully diminished arpeggio only contains one outside note, it still gives you a somewhat outside sound. So let me show you real quick. So let's say that you're kind of playing right here, right between frets 4 and 8. You're playing your A natural minor scale. So that would be the inside sound. So inside versus outside. Alright, so you hear how when you're playing the scale, the diatonic scale, the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, that's the inside sound we're listening for. Then the outside, you can keep going up all the strings. Alright, so that's like the outside sound, that's tension, tension, tension. Once you get back to the inside sound, that's the release of the tension. Of course, the same thing would be true if you're playing the C major scale, which is the same 7 notes as the A minor scale. So the C major scale would be your inside notes. And then you want to play that diminished arpeggio. And then back in. Alright, so why does it give this outside sound? Like, what is outside about it? It's this whole wanting to move somewhere. So if you're playing the C major scale, the note right before the note C, which is the note B, that note has a pull back to C. So let's play the C major scale. I ended on the note B. I ended on the last note of the scale. It wants to pull back to a C. So as soon as you play that C, it's like resolution. That note B, it's not done yet. It wants to go somewhere. So that's the whole outside sound. That's like the pull towards something, all right? That note B is one of the diminished arpeggio notes. The same thing is true if you're playing the A harmonic minor scale. So let's play the A. All right, so you hold on that G sharp. It wants to move somewhere. It wants to move to the A. That note G sharp is one of the 4 diminished arpeggio notes. So basically when you're playing this fully diminished arpeggio, it's creating that same type of tension, that same type of wanting to move somewhere, that same outsideness that's going on when you play the second to the last note of the scale that you're trying to play. So C major scale, that note B wants to move to the note C. A minor scale, or A harmonic minor scale, that very last note, that note G sharp, it's 1/2 step away from the note A. It wants to move somewhere, wants to move to the note A. So the fully diminished arpeggio provides that same type of tension. All right, so that's all that's going on here. That's the why. All right, so now I want to talk about why these fully diminished arpeggios are actually easier than major and minor arpeggios, and why they're easier than, the pentatonic scale patterns or the diatonic scale patterns. Fully diminished arpeggios are what is known as symmetrical. So if you just kind of learn the shape of a fully diminished arpeggio, like right here, you can move up 3 frets and play the exact same thing, and you'll be playing the exact same 4 notes. You can then move up 3 more frets, and you'll be playing the exact same 4 notes. Move up 3 more frets. So the shape, the pattern, it's always going to be the same every 3 frets apart. What that means is that there's actually only 3 fully diminished arpeggios in total. If you start on the 1st fret and play a fully diminished arpeggio, that's 1 of the 3. Start on the 2nd fret, play a fully diminished arpeggio, that's 2 of the 3. Start on the 3rd fret, that's 3 of the 3. Once you're at the 4th fret, it's the same thing as the 1st fret. All right, so let me show you. So let's say that the one that we're using here is the G sharp one. So that's one of the 3 diminished arpeggios. So the notes are going to be G sharp, B, D, F. So it's 3 frets apart every time. So the note G sharp, 1, 2, 3, there's the note B. 1, 2, 3, there's the note D. 1, 2, 3, there's the note F. 1, 2, 3, there's the note G sharp. 1, 2, 3, there's the note B. All right, so that's just on one single string. So you could play that G sharp, B, D, and F on you know, all 6 strings, and that would form a pattern like this. So I'm only playing 4 notes there. I'm playing G sharp, B, D, and F. So instead of starting on the note G sharp, I could start on the note B, play the same pattern. All right, I can start on the note D, play the same pattern. I can start on the note F, play the same pattern. Back up here on G sharp again, play the same pattern. So the patterns are always going to be the same. So you could play these on one single string. You could play them spanning across all 6 strings like I just did there. You could kind of confine everything to like one little area and play something like this. And then, of course, once you memorize that pattern, it's going to be the exact same thing, up 3 frets, same 4 notes. So instead of starting on the note G sharp, I'll start on the note B. Start on the note D. Start on the note F. All right, so it's the exact same pattern. It's the exact same 4 notes no matter where you start. So that was one of the 3 possible fully diminished arpeggios. So that was the one that started on either G sharp, B, D, or F. That was one of the 3 possibilities. The other possibilities are the ones that start on the note, you know, F sharp, or the note A, or the note C, or the note D sharp. All of those are the exact same thing. It's a symmetrical pattern, a symmetrical arpeggio. So that's 2 of the 3 possibilities. And then you have the third possible fully diminished arpeggio. That would be the G, A sharp, C sharp, E fully diminished arpeggio. They all work the same way. There's only 3 of them. So you figure out which of the 3 possible fully diminished arpeggios that you're trying to use, pick that one, and then you can use any of the 4 notes as your starting point. So for this lesson, we're using the G sharp one, which is equivalent to the B one, which is equivalent to the D one, which is equivalent to the F one. That's one of the 3 possibilities. The reason we chose this one is because of, we started out, we said, okay, we're in the key of C major or the key of A minor, whatever perspective you want to view the key signature from. You have that E major chord came into play. That's the note that's within the grouping of 6, inner circle, clockwise position. That chord was made major. Once that chord was made major, we say, okay, what note results in this being an out-of-key chord? That note is the note G sharp. Okay, G sharp, now we know what to do. G sharp, B, D, F. Those can be our starting points for the fully diminished arpeggio that we want to apply. So the final thing I want to talk about in this video is the difference between fully diminished arpeggios and half diminished arpeggios. And when I say arpeggios, that also means chords too. That's all that an arpeggio is. It's just the notes of a chord. So the difference between fully diminished chords and half diminished chords, or fully diminished arpeggios and half diminished arpeggios, it's a difference between one note. All right, so a fully diminished arpeggio has a root, a minor third, a diminished fifth, and a double flatted seventh. That's the chord formula for a fully diminished chord. A half diminished chord is a root, a minor third, a diminished fifth, and then a minor seventh. So the difference is that seventh. A fully diminished chord or fully diminished arpeggio has a double flatted seventh. A half diminished chord just has a single flatted seventh, a minor seventh it's called. So the symmetrical property only applies to fully diminished chords or fully diminished arpeggios. Half diminished chords, half diminished arpeggios, they don't have this symmetrical property. So if we were to play a fully diminished chord, I like to play these fully diminished chords. I always like to keep my the lowest note or the root on the A string. So I like to play fully diminished chords like this. So that has those 4 notes in there. You have your B, your F, your G sharp, and your D. So there's those 4 notes. If you move everything up by 3 frets, same 4 notes, move it up 3 more frets, same 4 notes, move it up 3 more frets. And then resolve. resolve on a nice A minor chord, or resolve on a C major chord, whatever. Alright, so you hear how it's tension, 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 tension. It's the same kind of tension because it's the exact same chord. And then once you get to that A minor chord or the C major chord, that's the resolution. That's the release of the tension. So that symmetrical property, it doesn't work with half diminished chords. So I just played fully diminished chords there. So in the key signature that we're in now, the key signature of C major / A minor, there's a B half diminished chord as your 7th chord. You have 3 major chords, 3 minor chords. Then you have a half diminished chord as your 7th chord. Fully diminished chords are not found diatonically in key signatures. So again, that's one of the reasons that it provides that outside sound. But yeah, that's fully diminished chords, fully diminished arpeggios. Pretty cool. That's going to do it for this lesson. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.